Good evening. I'm Wendy Mesley, and this is The National. An Alberta father charged in his young son's murder as the boy's mother reels from his horrible end.
He suffered a lot of trauma.
Until we change it.
Justin Trudeau spills a family story about marijuana charges. One passenger in tears, another under threat. The latest video to tarnish an airline. Plus, the Turning Point panel is here to assess the first 100 days of Donald Trump. Thumbs up or thumbs down? He was a little over 1.5 years old, loved superheroes as kids do. But the details of how a little boy in Edmonton died are so troubling, even the police found it hard to explain today. After days of questions, there are now some answers, but not enough for a grieving family who at first didn't even know it was their child at the center of a murder investigation. Terry Reith has our story.
He was just 19 months old when he was killed and his body dumped behind a church. The toddler has been identified as Anthony Rain, and according to police, the last 6 weeks of his life were filled with brutality.
He was living a terrible life full of violence, and one that is incredibly sad and that you don't even want to speak about.
The toddler's father, 26-year-old Joey Cryer, and his girlfriend, 25-year-old Tasha Lee Mack, face a number of disturbing charges. Second-degree murder, criminal negligence in failing to seek medical care, failure to provide the necessaries of life, and assault. Cryer faces an additional charge of assault causing bodily harm. An autopsy shows Rain died from trauma to the head.
The marks on the baby's body will be considered evidence, and I don't want to get into that right now at a media scrum like this. He suffered a lot of trauma.
This one and this one.
South of Edmonton in the small community of Musqueam, the child's mother, Dallas Rain, is being comforted by her sisters, sharing photos and memories.
Right now it's just hard for me because I never thought I'd have to bury my own son.
Anthony had gone to live with his father while his mother Dallas went to school. She said he assured her the boy would be in good hands.
I just can't imagine him gone right now. So unreal.
Police say the abuse began shortly after Joey Cryer picked up the boy in early March. The story has stunned Edmonton since the toddler's body was discovered on Friday. Police didn't know who he was. They took the unusual step of displaying the clothing he was found in. The next day, these surveillance photos led police to Cryer and Mack, who were arrested while riding a city bus on Saturday night. At the site where Anthony was found, there was a growing monument of flowers, toys, and teddy bears. Cryer and Mack appeared in court this morning via closed-circuit television. Neither has a previous criminal record. Both will remain at the Edmonton Remand Centre. The next court hearing is scheduled for May 8th. Terry Reith, CBC News, Edmonton.
You saw how hard it was for that family to find the words to describe their grief. For another grieving mother, words aren't enough. She's using a photo, an image of her dying son, to serve as a powerful lesson against drug use. Carolyn Dunn has our story.
You can practically feel the pain jumping from the image. Sherry Kent's final moments with her dying son, Michael.
They made me a spot on the bed where I could lay with my son and talk to him. So, this is where I told my son, I was still proud of him, and, I know he made a mistake. He made a big mistake that cost him his life.
That mistake was going to meet an acquaintance who said he had some strong heroin. Michael overdosed. Doctors suspect the heroin was cut with the deadly opioid fentanyl.
He was already blue in the lips and he was white, so by the time the ambulance got there, he went into cardiac arrest.
Sherry donated Michael's organs, but she felt she had to do more. So she shared the painful and poignant photo on Facebook. She's urging people to show it to their own children.
I need people to wake up and see how much pain this is going to cause your mother or your father when this happens to you.
Kent has been overwhelmed with responses from around the country and the world. This communications professor says that photo speaks to the opioid crisis in a way no words could.
With a photo, everything stops. And I think a photo like this one, it translates directly into the heart. You feel that emotion like nothing else.
Other photos have had the same impact during times of crisis. In 1955, 14-year-old Emmett Till was visiting Mississippi when he was beaten and shot to death after flirting with a white woman. The picture of his disfigured body is viewed as a motivating force in the civil rights movement. The image of David Kirby on his deathbed in Ohio in 1990 changed the face of AIDS. It has been seen more than 1 billion times since being used in a clothing store ad. Sherry Kent would like you to know that in his life, her son was trusting and kind, and she hopes her son's death will save others from opioids and fentanyl.
I don't want that to happen to anybody else. I'm devastated, I'm heartbroken, I'm shattered.
She's sharing that pain so Michael's death will not be in vain. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Calgary.
Another sign the opioid crisis isn't slowing down. Police in British Columbia revealed another haul of seized drugs.
These drugs that we seized have an estimated street value of approximately $300,000.
In that cache was heroin laced with a lethal amount of fentanyl, as well as fentanyl itself. Weapons, including assault rifles, were also seized. The operation involved multiple forces, including Border Police. There were no details given about the number of suspects or charges. The Prime Minister was talking tonight about another still illegal drug, but Justin Trudeau hinted for the first time that once marijuana is legal, his government will look at what it can do for people facing possession charges now. Catherine Cullen is in Ottawa with the details.
As the Prime Minister moves forward with legalizing marijuana, he's under pressure from some to stop police from charging people with pot-related crimes. Now, he made it clear again tonight that he is not going to do that, but he seemed to open the door to the possibility of doing something later. And in order to make his point, Justin Trudeau revealed that a few months before his brother Michel died, he was charged with pot possession and that his father tried to help make those charges disappear.
My dad said, okay, don't worry about it. Reached out to his friends in the legal community, got the best possible lawyer, and was very confident that we were going to be able to make those charges go away. We were able to do that because we had resources. My dad had a couple connections, and we were confident that my little brother wasn't going to be saddled with a criminal record for life. However, people from minority communities, marginalized communities, without economic resources are not going to have that kind of option.
Then he directly addressed an audience member who's dealing with a pot possession charge.
We will start a process where we try and look at how we're going to make things fairer for those folks and for you.
But he said that process would only start after the government has dealt with legalization. So there will be no moratorium on charges right now, even though the Prime Minister says the current system is unfair. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Coming up, Ontario experiments with a guaranteed minimum income. The idea has been looked at before.
The time for empty talk is over.
Plus, Donald Trump closes in on 100 days in office. The Turning Point panel is ready to judge. American Airlines has joined rival United in the bad books of some angry passengers. A PR firestorm stoked by cell phone video seen by millions. The CBC's Kim Brunhuber has the latest.
It's fair to say it hasn't been the best of months for customer relations at two of the world's biggest airlines. By now, you've likely seen the latest video, a woman sobbing because, according to witnesses, an American Airlines flight attendant grabbed her stroller, which wasn't allowed in the cabin.
He rips it away from her, and it almost hits the little baby's head. I said to him something like, "What are you doing? You almost hit that baby in the head." And then he was just yelling at me to stay out of it.
Then another passenger, seemingly upset with how the situation's being handled, demands the flight attendant's name, which leads to this.
You do that to me and I'll knock you flat.
You stay out of
American Airlines placed the flight attendant on paid leave and vowed to investigate, saying, "What we see on this video does not reflect our values or how we care for our customers." The airline issued its statement shortly after the plane touched down, perhaps learning from the PR maelstrom that engulfed United Airlines, which took days to properly apologize for this.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
A video that's now been seen by hundreds of millions worldwide.
Look at what you did to him!
About 2 weeks ago, 69-year-old Dr. David Dow was dragged down the aisle after refusing to give up his seat on an oversold flight. According to Dow's lawyer, he suffered a concussion, a broken nose, 2 lost teeth, and will need facial reconstruction.
He's hurt. And he really is of the mindset that this is an example, and the American Airlines incident, an example of why we need fairness, dignity, and being treated right. There is a culture of disrespect.
This lawyer is now representing the 2 passengers in both videos. Dow is definitely suing. The woman with the stroller is still considering her options, he says. But the public outcry from both cases should be a warning to all airlines.
We live in the age of cell phone video, so corporations have to take heed.
Mistreatment can no longer be hidden, and anger is quick to spread. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Los Angeles.
This next story is about Canada and trade, but it's not about Donald Trump. The U.S. president has been getting a lot of attention lately for taking shots at Canada. But the Canadian government doesn't appear to be dwelling on it. It's pursuing other opportunities to sell Canadian, devoting this week to wooing one of the world's other top economies. Katie Simpson explains.
The government's push to deepen ties with China is on at home and abroad. Over the next 4 days, Chinese officials are in Ottawa for another round of exploratory free trade talks. While in Beijing, the ministers of trade and finance are holding high-level discussions to improve economic cooperation.
I think that it just makes perfect sense. We are a free trading nation.
The Prime Minister has long promised to strengthen relations with China, but there's a new sense of urgency to those efforts since tensions with Canada's biggest trading partner emerged.
Canada, what they've done to our dairy farm workers is a disgrace.
Donald Trump lashed out against Canadian dairy regulations, energy policy, and the lumber trade in the last week alone.
Given what we're expecting is going to happen next with the U.S. To try to diversify our export markets, these efforts that you mentioned are extremely positive developments.
Lumber producers are bracing for new taxes or countervailing duties on Canadian softwood lumber that will be formally introduced by the U.S. tomorrow.
We will aggressively protect our interests, and we will aggressively protect the forest sector.
It's likely no coincidence the trade minister has also used his trip to China to promote the sale of Canadian lumber in Asia, tweeting frequently about the opportunity he sees.
Priority 1 should be the United States.
But not everyone is so enthusiastic about getting closer to China.
We in the official opposition think that the Liberals should put a pause in what we consider to be an indecent rush to a trade agreement with China.
Canada's former ambassador to China also agrees the U.S. should be the trading priority, at least for now.
Although we have our problems with certain administrations in Washington or with certain states, the American market is a lot more open and is a lot more welcoming of what Canada has to offer.
The Chinese market may be looking far more attractive tonight. The American lumber lobby says tomorrow the U.S. will slap tariffs on Canadian softwood ranging from 3% to 24%, which could significantly hurt some producers. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada accepted a record number of refugees last year, and today the government was lauded by the United Nations. According to the UN's refugee agency, 46,700 people resettled in Canada in 2016, the vast majority from Syria. It's the most ever refugees admitted in a single year since the government introduced its immigration policy in the 70s, far outnumbering the 40,000 people accepted in 1980, most from Southeast Asia. Straight ahead, new allegations that Canadian soldiers were tortured during training.
And the story of maple syrup is told on film. What better way to learn than by watching a movie on television?
This is one of the earliest methods used to process food in Canada. Our early settlers not only used to tap their own trees on their own farms, but they used to even plant them along the roadside. And you can still see many of those sugar maples along the roads here in many parts of Canada.
At Elmville, Ontario, Wally Greenlaw uses an ultramodern pipeline to bring the sap from the bush to the sugar shack.
It's a sealed system. It's on vacuum, so it's a sealed system. Nothing gets in but sap. I just love it up here in the bush, making syrup, and my father with me. And we like making syrup. I guess that's the thing.
You know, most people have regarded maple syrup production as a nice hobby, nostalgic and all that, but rarely as a viable business. Well, that may not be the case much longer, because true maple syrup may be on the verge of making a comeback.
There's something that in pure maple syrup that you just can't duplicate any other way.
I know our sales are up. Every year they're going up, and if you've got a good quality product and market it in a proper way, you'll have no problem.
This is one of the largest maple syrup warehouses in the world. Last fall, 27 million pounds were stored here. The huge surplus forced down prices. The market took off, and the syrup went with it. A lot of it is bound for the United States, where the appetite for syrup is growing.
During a routine inventory check, someone noticed a lot of syrup had disappeared.
We were shocked. We didn't know what happened.
The warehouse that was robbed holds enough maple syrup to fill nearly 2 Olympic-sized pools. A lot of that was stolen, perhaps millions of dollars worth.
The syrup was insured, so producers won't be out any money, but there could be a sticky problem for buyers and processors. They may have to compete with the black market of liquid gold.
There is a human and poetic quality in maples, which is easily felt. Many farmers would no more part with their maple bush or orchard than with any precious heirloom.
Our Go Public team got a lot of reaction to the story earlier this month about Canadian soldier training that involved alleged abuse and torture. Since that first story, other former Canadian soldiers have come forward to say they also endured the prisoner of war style training and suffered lifelong trauma as a result. Rosa Marcatelli has more.
More than 20 years have passed since Greg Alkerton was a soldier in the Canadian military.
I was learning how to become a reconnaissance patrolman, and I was also learning to become a sniper.
During that time, he took part in 2 training exercises that included prisoner of war type training. First at Canadian Forces Base Shiloh in Manitoba, and then at CFB Gagetown in New Brunswick.
They knocked all of the drains off of the urinals in this bathroom, so this thing is flushing on a timer continually, and they're using the bathroom, and all kinds of messy things are going on. So the floor is basically flooding with this stuff, and you're laying in it.
After Go Public reported on a training course at CFB Wainwright, during which soldiers say they were tortured at the hands of the Canadian military, other former soldiers have come forward, saying the abuse was not a one-off, but widespread, happening on military bases across Canada. One says he witnessed groups of young recruits being trained in a mock prisoner of war camp in 1989. The man asked we not identify him for fear of reprisal.
It was minus 50 with wind chill. They actually dumped water on these guys cramped in these little 2x2 boxes with barbed wire. They poked at them with sticks, threw rocks at them.
Other soldiers tell us they were beaten severely, subjected to sleep and food deprivation for days, waterboarding and electric shocks, and left with injuries like broken fingers inflicted during training.
It's an embarrassment for Canada because we are accepting people who have gone through horrible experience. And we are not willing to acknowledge the mistakes that we made ourselves.
What they really taught me to be is a person with PTSD.
In the early 2000s, the Canadian Forces changed the way it teaches soldiers how to handle being captured, putting in specific standards and a course curriculum. The training now includes medical and psychological oversight, and the instructors are filmed. The Canadian military won't comment on what happened to soldiers in the 80s and 90s before that oversight was added, pointing to a review that's now underway on how military police investigated what happened at CFB Wainwright during training there. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Go Public gets its stories from viewers like you. If you have a story you want the team to investigate, reach out to them online through the Go Public webpage or email them at gopublic@cbc.ca. Former Cabinet Minister Vic Toews is facing a Canadian Judicial Council review. Toews retired from politics in July 2013 and was named as a judge in Manitoba the following March. Last week, Canada's Ethics Commissioner found Toews broke conflict of interest rules twice. The council could recommend Toews be removed from the bench. The Ontario government is trying a new way to fight poverty and help its poorest residents pay for the essentials. It's testing a basic income in 3 parts of the province. It could improve welfare with fewer strings attached for recipients. Ron Charles explains how it works.
Life has often been a financial struggle for Rhonda Castillo. She has tried to survive on various government benefits since a workplace accident in 2009.
Being an independent since I was 16, and it's very hard.
Castillo says she finds some hope in what she heard today. Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne announced a pilot project to test out whether guaranteeing a minimum basic income would improve the lives of the poor.
We want to find out whether a basic income makes a positive difference in people's lives, whether this new approach gives them the ability to begin to achieve their potential, and whether it's an approach that can be adopted across our province as a whole.
When it's launched later this spring, the pilot project will guarantee a basic income to 4,000 randomly selected people in 3 Ontario communities: the Hamilton area, Thunder Bay, and Lindsay, Ontario. During the 3-year study, participants will get a guaranteed income starting at about $17,000 for a single person and up to $34,000 for a couple with 2 children. For every dollar participants make in employment income, the government will claw back 50 cents of the basic income. Some economists caution clawing back so much income may have unintended consequences.
What it will do is possibly disincentivize certain people from working, at least working quite a lot.
Ontario is not the first jurisdiction in Canada to study basic income. Just over 40 years ago, Ed Schreier's Manitoba NDP government tested Mincome with 1,300 people. That study ran out of money in 1979, leaving behind a warehouse of data experts are still trying to sift through. Ontario hopes to avoid that fate for its $150 million project. Ontario will evaluate its pilot project while it's unfolding, and then when it's over in 3 years, decide whether to go ahead with basic income province-wide. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Right after the break, Peter joins the Turning Point panel for a timely talk. You'll hear their verdict on Donald Trump's first 100 days. Plus, France's political split, voters who support the EU and those who don't.
The National with Knowlton Nash.
Good evening and welcome to rainy Vancouver and Expo 86.
The province they call Supernatural is ready. They've been drilling, painting, cleaning, and checking all week.
I think everyone's relatively calm.
There's everything here, from the world's biggest flagpole to the world's biggest hockey stick and the world's biggest hockey puck.
You never know what you'll see next, and you never know who you're going to meet next. There's the mascot of the fair, Expo Ernie.
Well, bless my little robotic heart. Knowlton Nash and the crew from the National. How do you do? Glad to have you here.
Expo is a fair about transportation, so this state-of-the-art monorail was a natural. For the first 2 months, it kept breaking down, but now it's carrying capacity crowds.
The sun shone for the first time in weeks in Vancouver today, and with the sun, Expo 86 came alive. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people got to see the fair for the first time. Being Saturday, it was a big day for the children. And for children, what counts at a fair is the fun. There was no shortage of that.
Just great. It's bringing the whole country together, too.
$5,000 is spent every night by Expo for a computerized laser and fireworks show. It's called International Nights of Fire.
We've never seen fireworks like that before.
Oh, that was awesome. At 86th Street, they party with the Powder Blues Band, and they obey the rules to eat, drink, and go crazy. When they first opened, these nightclubs had so many customers, things sometimes got out of hand. So extra doormen were hired. Proper dress is now required. The people who don't like dress codes still have a place to go, though. At the Irish pub, there doesn't seem to be any code at all.
Expo has done itself proud. That's great. They did well. I enjoyed myself like no other time.
It's the best thing that ever happened to British Columbia and to me.
I love it. I've had a great time here.
When we said in the House of Commons that was the most ridiculous policy ever, then if you will just wait, the truth will be given to you.
To unfurl a flag that is truly distinctive and truly national in character, as Canadian as the maple leaf on your badge.
When the cavalcade rolled up to a stage where Trudeau was to make remarks in support of the local candidates, he was confronted by sign-carrying hecklers again. This time protesting high unemployment. Trudeau's response, as it has been throughout this campaign, was to fight back.
Yeah, we saw you last night with your painted and hired signs and your hired friends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of you holding signs like little boys. Come on, go and look for some jobs.
No, you're lost without your nose.
This lady just wouldn't give up and kept up a barrage of one-liners throughout the speech.
Are you running as a rhinoceros or as a liberal? Eh?
No rah-rah speeches! The truth!
Mulroney was frequently interrupted by a large and unusually provocative group of hecklers, most of them striking workers at the Gainers meatpacking plant in Edmonton. Mulroney appealed for calm, didn't get it, and didn't like it.
You can yell and you can scream all you want. I've fought bigger and better people than you, and I'll do it again.
As the Prime Minister continued toward his car, he came face to face with one of the demonstrators. Suddenly, Chrétien took the man by the back of the neck. His other hand was over the protester's mouth. He pushed him aside. Seconds later, another protester approached the Prime Minister. Chrétien knocked over the bullhorn that was in his hand.
But he was right in front of me, shouting and trying to block my way, so I took him out.
We are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
Well, that was Inauguration Day for the 45th President of the United States, almost 100 days ago now for Donald Trump. He promised a new world for Americans, one he said they'd see in a hurry. So, what have they seen? In a moment, our Turning Point panel. Saeed Khan is a historian and Middle East expert from Wayne State University. He's in Detroit. And here in Toronto, Samantha Nutt, founder of War Child Canada, and Keith Bogue, our Washington correspondent. Their thoughts in a moment, but first, this.
The time for empty talk is over.
So there were lots of signature promises of immediate action. He was going to tear up NAFTA.
NAFTA's been very, very bad.
Tear up the nuclear deal with Iran. Build a wall on the Mexican border, and of course make them pay for it. None of that has happened. He was going to ban Muslims from entering the country.
I am going to keep radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country.
Tried.
We will not go away!
Failed.
We'll win that battle.
He was going to have a multi-million-dollar infrastructure program.
We will make America strong again.
He was going to restructure the tax system.
We will make America wealthy again.
Still waiting on those, too.
Trump!
Yep, there were lots of big promises, but none rivaled the big one, the really big one.
Obamacare has been a complete and total catastrophe.
Say goodbye to Obamacare, said the new president. It would be history fast. Wrong-o, buckwheat. It's still very much intact and in law. He did try, but it was a dismal failure, which even his own party couldn't get behind. So the first 100 days, what should we make of it?
We'll see what happens.
Time for some answers. All right, now some people might see that as a very unfair reflection on the first 100 days, or roughly 100 days. He did get his Supreme Court nominee through the system. But, you know, in your view, if you had to find one thing that he delivered on in terms of his promises, what would it be, Sam?
Well, certainly he's delivered on his promise of pro-big business, his anti-regulatory agenda. So, for example, he has systematically gone after the Environmental Protection Agency, putting his own people in there, threatening to gut it by 30%. So unfortunately, he has been successful in some very critical areas that seem to advance his particular position on creating this kind of economic environment for the United States that he considers to be most productive. And unfortunately, there are some really serious consequences from that.
All right. Saeed, what about you? If you had to point to one thing where he has succeeded, where would it be?
Well, I would say his pulling the U.S. out of the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, something that he campaigned on. And I'd like to go ahead and piggyback on what Sam said. One of the things that he has done very effectively is what he pledged to do regarding the Obama-era reforms. Going ahead now and moving ahead with the Keystone XL pipeline, getting the G20 to keep language of climate change out of its joint statement, deregulating the coal industry, and let's face it, I mean, he did succeed in putting out the travel/Muslim bans. It's now in the hands of the court, but he still is one who put those together and said that he was going to implement these within the first 100 days.
All right, Keith, where are you on this?
Well, can we just go back to Neil Gorsuch? Donald Trump,
the Supreme Court nominee.
The Supreme Court appointment that he made. He himself regards that as one of his biggest achievements. So do many conservatives, even some Democrats are pointing to that. But I think the reality is that though it might be the most consequential thing that he has done in his presidency, because Gorsuch could be on the court for 3 or 4 decades, the reality is that that's a victory for the Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader there. It was Mitch McConnell who, when that vacancy first came open, more than a year ago, decided that he was not going to have hearings on Barack Obama's appointee, that he was going to do everything he could, whether it was unprecedented, unconstitutional, unconventional, you name it, he didn't care. He was going to keep that seat open for what he hoped would be a Republican president, and he got one. And I think what Donald Trump did was really follow through on what Mitch McConnell had given him, which was an opportunity to fill a seat.
All right. Well, wherever you stand, whether you go with the list of failures or those accomplishments that the three of you have mentioned here already, the fact is his approval rating is lower than anybody in American history, any other president at this point in their term. Is it the list of failures that's driven him to that point in the ratings? Saeed?
Well, I think that it's important to remember, Peter, that he won only the electoral vote. He lost the popular vote. He only got 46.4% of the popular vote. So I think it's fair to assume that he's losing some of his base of support. And perhaps that can be explained by his failures, or perhaps the rate of failure. The idea that he came in with a lot of big and bold promises that he was going to get all these things implemented. He hasn't done those. Some of that blame can certainly be on Congress. Some of it is, of course, on just the quality of the ideas themselves, as well as this notion that a people who had been promised so much, were expecting so much, his own pivot on some of these issues has really left a lot of people scratching their heads, particularly in his base.
But if he's holding 90% of those who voted for him, which those numbers would suggest, for a guy who's definitely a polarizing president, that's probably not so bad, given the rate of failure he's had in the first few months.
Absolutely, Peter, and that's the most important piece out of this. The people who love him still love him. They are still with him. The people who never liked him, never trusted him, still don't like him, still don't trust him. And so for a president like Trump, if your primary agenda is to keep appeasing your base, if you look at those numbers, you look at that approval and your popularity within that core group of supporters. I mean, things you're looking pretty good right now if you're Trump, because they're with you. And despite all of the things that he has done, whether it's his failure on immigration, his more sort of activist foreign interventions at this moment in time, none of those things seem to have tilted the balance when it comes to how they think of him. They still are with him.
Now, of course, 42% and holding that base is not going to get you reelected. You know, can he recover from these kind of numbers? I mean, it's only 3 months into the presidency, but can he recover?
Well, I guess you have to say yes, because anything's possible. And we've learned through the last 18 months of politics in Washington to never say never about anything. But I think the point being that, you know, he came into this job with historically low disapproval ratings, very, very high negatives, is an important one. And I think what the election told us, even through the result, was that Donald Trump didn't really win the policy argument in the campaign. What he won was a constituency that wanted disruption, and they didn't really think too much about what that was going to mean, but they felt that it was absolutely necessary for it to happen. For him to start improving his numbers now, though, I think he has to start winning the policy arguments. Margaret Thatcher used to say, first you win the argument, then you win the votes. I think that's where he is right now.
You know, Sam, you watch the international scene very carefully on a number of fronts. This is the president who came into office saying America first, and he wasn't going to focus outside of America. The area where he seems to have got the most popular support is when he's been saber-rattling, whether it was North Korea or the cruise missile attacks in Syria. What does that tell us about him and about the situation currently for the U.S.?
Well, I think the only thing it tells us is that the most predictable thing about Donald Trump is his unpredictability. You know, even if you look at the sort of missile attack on Syria, for example, he was able to spin that. I mean, this is a guy who is incredibly astute, whether we like it or not, when it comes to spin. And he's been able to even position that intervention as a way of America being back, demonstrating force, putting their own interests front and forward, making sure that they're not being taken advantage of, making sure that they have that kind of prominence in the world. So here's a guy that isn't afraid of any kind of disconnect between what he said previously and what he's doing now, because as soon as those cameras start rolling, he finds a way to position it as a strength as opposed to a weakness. And for me, the most worrisome part of that is that he's also a guy who's so driven by those ratings that he has a tendency to do again what seemed to have worked for him in the past. And when you're talking about foreign policy, and we saw that too with the attack with Afghanistan, where they dropped the largest non-nuclear weapon that's been used in recent history. You know, here's a guy who's going to go back to those same wells, and what that could mean on a global scale is, for me, the most worrisome part of this.
Spin is right. I mean, they attack an airbase in Syria and 59 Tomahawk missiles, and they don't take out the runway. It looks a little odd. Sy, do you want to quickly reference this issue, what it tells us about him in terms of those overseas missions?
Well, I think to borrow from Sam as well, this is a clear deflection, and I think it shows that Trump realizes that his domestic agenda is not really being fulfilled. But it also is part of a broader, unfortunately, American arc. We saw this with Ronald Reagan attacking and invading Grenada. We saw this with Bill Clinton in 1998 in order to get attention away from the Monica Lewinsky issue by bombing the Sudan. So it's part of a, unfortunately, an American foreign policy that when a president feels as though he's being addled by low ratings, or in order to try to gin up those numbers, it's very easy to then marshal the American public, including the opposition, that does not want to be seen as unpatriotic or unsupportive of a president who goes ahead and invokes security and the need for military action.
Yeah. Didn't Clinton's attack on Sudan ended up a baby milk formula factory?
Formula factory.
It's the wag the dog phenomenon.
Wag the dog.
Yeah.
All right. I want to break it down into a couple of areas about where we are at this point. Keith, what do we assume Trump's top priorities are at this point in his presidency?
Well, I guess we could assume they are what he says they are: make America great again, jobs, 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 repeal and replace Obamacare. Or we could look at what power has revealed about Donald Trump, what his real priorities seem to be. His entire life he has been about making deals and winning. And I think that's very much what animates him right now. I think part of the healthcare debacle, where he got behind a proposal that was really created by Republicans in Congress rather than by the White House, part of that was because he saw the possibility of a deal happening without really understanding understanding all the works behind it, all the interior stuff, nor did he understand how to get it through Congress. But I think, again, he was motivated simply by the idea that I could have a deal. What the deal was, how it would affect ordinary people, I don't think he cared. And if that's the way he's going to continue, I think that's a difficult path to try to, build a legacy on.
Sam?
I certainly agree with that, but I also think this is one of the challenges when you run as an anti-establishment candidate, because then you're stuck having to negotiate with the very people that you have demeaned and criticized. And to a certain degree, Obama faced this as well. I mean, as he was stepping out of his presidency, one of the biggest criticisms leveled against him was here was a guy who didn't accomplish nearly as much as he'd set out to because he just wasn't able to get the kind of legislation passed because he couldn't build those diplomatic channels. Donald Trump suffers from that too, but I would go a bit further and say that I do think he has systematically intervened with both executive orders and the gutting of the State Department and U.S. foreign aid and the EPA and other regulatory institutions in favor of his pro-big business agenda, anti-regulatory agenda that frankly could be very, very harmful. And so as we focus on these bigger failures of his, those quiet successes that he's having can add up to something that will be, I think, have a major impact on the United States and on Canada potentially in the years ahead.
All right, here's the last question. So you just start us off on it. Is he shaping global conversations? And if he is, how is he doing that?
Oh, I think he most certainly is. I think perhaps the most recent example of that, Peter, is his endorsement, if you will, of Marine Le Pen in the French elections. I mean, the very idea that an American president would give support to, well, let's just go ahead and call it what it is, a fascist political candidate is remarkable. And we find that he has an awful lot of empathy and affinity for these authoritarian leaders. The very first phone call that Recep Erdogan received after the Turkish referendum, which gave him sweeping powers, was from Trump. He also likes Modi, he likes Putin. And so this notion of these populist, nationalist, authoritarian figures is a complete departure from really where America has been for the last several decades. And then, of course, we're looking at China and Russia. Comes into office speaking very tough on China, now has softened his stance, came into office rather soft on Russia, and now has become a little bit more frosty to it. So it's leaving a lot of people scratching a lot of heads.
All right, you get the last word, Keith.
Well, I think the scratching the heads thing is the right way to put it. He's introduced so much uncertainty into the world because he says and does things, and people can't tell whether they are one-offs or whether they're strategic, whether there's a fundamental realignment happening in foreign policy or whether it's just make it up every time you get out of bed in the morning. I think that needs to be straightened out. There are some signs, I think, that it is being straightened out, but that's what's confused the world. Who is this guy really?
All right, good conversation. Thank you all, Saeed in Detroit, and Sam and Keith here in Toronto. We'll have more stories about the Trump first 100 days throughout this week on The National. Right now, stay tuned for more with Wendy. She's back right after the break.
One of the highlights of the sports year throughout Western Europe, the International Auto Exhibit. By and large, the designers and manufacturers have worked toward the goal of producing a car that will carry the most people the farthest at the lowest cost. But comfort remains a factor. And as far as gadgetry is concerned, the European car makers are in a neck-and-neck race with their American counterparts.
Transporting cargo is no problem for the XP883.
The automobile may be a form of transportation, a way of getting from here to there, but it's also much more. It has served Americans as a status symbol, a love object, and an instrument of adolescent machismo. Suddenly we become aware that families that would never dream of purchasing a $100 painting are eager to spend $7,000 for a gleaming, striped and chromed hunk of metal. In their eyes, this suggests beauty.
This particular car is all electric, yes, and you remember we came in the front door here. It's very simple. There's a brake and an accelerator and one position for forward and one position for reverse, and that's all there is to it.
You just seal this up by pulling this down.
Right? Let's try it.
Oh,
There.
how about that? Do you suppose we'll ever get out again?
I don't know. I feel like preserved here like some peaches.
Now,
We realize the emphasis is on wheels, but we never expected to find this. It's called the Panther 6 because it has 6 wheels, 2 on the back, 4 on the front. The Panther is now handmade just outside Vancouver and uses a huge Cadillac turbo engine. How fast?
200 miles an hour.
How much?
$200,000.
Wow.
So what will you be driving in 25 years? This prototype was designed to travel at 240 kilometers per hour. TV cameras mounted inside the back of the car feed the driver pictures of what's happening behind.
And what you do is you program in where you want to go and where you are, and on this screen you'll get a digitized map that shows you the best alternative route to take.
This car just might take the place of some airplane flights.
Sirens sounded across Israel today, and people everywhere stopped whatever they were doing for 2 minutes. The annual Holocaust Remembrance Day mourns the 6 million Jewish people murdered under Nazi rule. 2 weeks before France picks its next president, 2 big developments today. One candidate, Marine Le Pen, has stepped aside as leader of her party, hoping to expand her appeal, while the other, Emmanuel Macron, got a dubious endorsement, support from the current president, France's least popular ever. The CBC's Thomas Daigle has the details.
One win in the books and still plenty of campaigning to do. Emmanuel Macron hoping to repeat his victory in the presidential runoff. The far-right candidate, Marine Le Pen, and her party are framing the second round as a referendum.
This is very clear. Macron is for globalization. Marine Le Pen is for a renewed France. So we have a very clear political choice, and I believe that during these 2 weeks we will be able to explain that.
Macron views globalization as a solution to France's sluggish economy. Le Pen sees it as the cause of the trouble. She wants France to ditch the euro and reconsider its EU membership. He wants closer ties to European neighbors. Macron's plans don't fly much in small-town France, like here in Château-la-Vallière, population 1,600. I hope Madame Le Pen wins the second round, he says. I don't want any of Emmanuel Macron. In cosmopolitan Paris, by contrast, only 4% of voters chose the far-right candidate. Macron has ideas that are not too different from mine, says this voter. I don't want Marine Le Pen to be president of the Republic. Her priorities include strengthening borders and curbing immigration. Sound familiar?
She's trying to repeat a little bit the American campaign, Trump versus Clinton.
Other European nations have made their pick, choosing Macron, underscoring the fear that a Le Pen win might endanger the EU itself.
Seeing together EU and French flags welcoming the results of Emmanuel Macron was the hope of a generation.
Rassembler tous les Français.
Tonight, Le Pen is seeking to broaden her appeal, stepping down as National Front leader, she says, to focus on the race, perhaps sensing her opponent's lead widening.
Two candidates with vastly different views of their country and the world. French voters will decide which perspective they prefer in 2 weeks. Thomas Dagg with CBC News, London.
120 people in the Toronto area may be out $9 million after they gave money to a man they trusted, who in turn lent it to a convicted fraudster. The lenders were promised strong returns in the short term. Now the money could be gone for good. Michelle Chung has the details of this CBC News investigation.
Registered mortgage agent Dominic Ha is seen talking about syndicated mortgages, a mortgage that involves multiple private lenders instead of borrowing from a bank.
I saw a lot of seniors.
According to investors we spoke to, Ha invited his friends, their relatives, and friends of friends to weekly seminars at a hotel in Markham to sell that type of investment.
The presentation was very beautiful. Painted very rosy pictures with 12% interest.
Margaret Wong was one of several investors who attended the same church as Ha for years. The retiree says Ha sold her 4 syndicated mortgage investments with Black Bear Homes, totaling $200,000. Many of them in Crystal Beach, a community on the northeast shore of Lake Erie.
How can a churchgoer who was so devoted will lie to us? So believe every word he said. He said, don't worry, so we don't worry.
When the investors handed over their money to Ha, they told us they didn't have an opportunity to look over the contracts before signing.
He just opened the sticky notes to ask me to sign all the notes beside it, and then asked me, you can go now. The contract will send it to you later. So that was like less than 5 minutes. I was asking him, can I read through it? And then he said that we don't have time.
Bill Vassalou is a certified fraud expert. He says, in his opinion, there are many red flags.
With these contracts, one, they've been lied to. They've been misrepresented the facts. They've been sold a bill of goods that, on a positive note, saying this is what you're getting. You should have gone through the documentation properly.
After the investors stopped receiving their monthly 1% interest checks in February 2016, they found out Black Bear's representative, Gary Fraser, had been convicted of 28 counts of fraud over $5,000 back in 2008. CBC News contacted Fraser several times, but he declined to do an interview. In an email, he did challenge our fraud examiner's opinion. I am doubtfully an expert would make such a statement. I just need to ask you about your... We also contacted Ha by phone, email, and in person, but he declined to do an interview with us. Ha's lawyer sent us a statement saying his client has clearly informed and disclosed to each investor all the information that both the law and the mortgage broker require him to disclose. Police say they're now investigating complaints filed by investors. As for Margaret Wong, she says she's now going to have to sell her house to pay back the money she borrowed. Michelle Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Under cover of darkness, the city of New Orleans has removed a controversial Confederation-era statue. Workers wore masks and flak jackets and were protected by police snipers as they loaded the obelisk onto a truck. It was put up more than 100 years ago to honor a group against racial integration after the Civil War. It's even been used by the Ku Klux Klan as a rallying point. The mayor says it will be moved to a place where it can be put in historical context. Former U.S. President Barack Obama offered some historical context of his own today during his first public appearance since leaving office in January.
So, what's been going on while I've been gone?
But that was as close as he got to current politics. Obama spent the rest of his time at the University of Chicago telling students how he first got engaged in civic work and how they could do the same thing today. Coming up, flying cars. We've been told about them for decades. Are they worth the wait? Let's check the day's business numbers. The TSX rose by 97 points and the dollar stayed about the same. Meanwhile, in New York, the Dow jumped 216 points and the Nasdaq closed 73 points up. That's a record high.
I'm Anna Maria Tremonti. Tomorrow on The Current, for decades, Don McPherson has advocated for the decriminalization and regulation of illicit drugs to curb overdose deaths in Vancouver. Don McPherson on The Current, weekdays at 8:30 on CBC Radio 1.
Tomorrow, Coca-Cola Company will tell a thirsty world it's putting a smoother, sweeter taste into the most instantly recognizable bottle in the world.
This has got to be the boldest consumer product move of any kind, of any stripe, since Eve started to hand out apples.
Here they drag out all the hoopla, thinking that they're going to war against the arch-rival Pepsi. But it turns out they've picked a fight in their own backyard with their best friends.
I can't tell the difference between the new taste of Coke and the old taste of Pepsi.
Why are you upset about it?
My oldest daughter is 22. Her first word was Coke. Her second word was Mommy.
For decades, Coke has stayed on top by being cautious and conservative. Lately, though, Pepsi is growing faster than Coke. The Pepsi challenge is clearly hurting.
We made our choice, making it Pepsi.
Pepsi has captured a young, hip positioning that Coke, by nature of its corporate culture, is not really able to understand yet.
I put a Pepsi in the motion, but that choice is up to you. Hey.
It must be every young boy's fantasy to turn around and see Michael Jackson. I mean, how wonderful.
The Coca-Cola Company is bringing back the real thing. For weeks, the company has been hyping the taste of its new formula Coke. But today it announced it's going to start selling the old Coke again under a new name.
We're bringing it back. The original taste of Coca-Cola returns as Coca-Cola Classic.
We have booster ignition and liftoff.
When the shuttle Challenger blasts off tomorrow, it will begin a new space race. On board will be two specially designed soft drink cans, one from Coke, the other from Pepsi, allowing astronauts to drink a carbonated beverage in the weightlessness of space for the first time.
It's the Cola Wars in action.
The supermarket shelf is the front line in the Cola War. Pepsi and Coke slugging it out in the world's longest-running business battle.
The National.
The National.
Tonight.
More proof personal flying vehicles may soon be a reality. Backed by one of Google's founders, aerospace company Kitty Hawk revealed this electric prototype today. But don't expect to fly it to work. You may not need a pilot's license, but it's only regulated to fly in uncongested areas. More eco-friendly tech, this time from a German engineering college. It's a system using ordinary plastic bottles to make strong structures, from seats and tables to even a small bridge. The key is using tiny 3D printed connectors, along with a modeling program to test stability. If they make the final cut, they will join a select group. Just 12 Canadians in 3 decades who have been chosen to be astronauts.
If I had to sum this all up, I just want you to understand, we have put these candidates through their paces.
I have absolute, complete confidence that I would be happy to get in a rocket with any one of these candidates.
The Canadian Space Agency introduced its shortlist of 17 candidates today. They already beat out more than 3,700 other applicants to get to this point. The group now moves into the final phase of the highly competitive recruitment process. The 2 successful recruits will be announced by summer. That's The National for this Monday night. And for news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Wendy Mesley. Thanks for watching.